Moderator began our program by referencing the political, academic, and practical components of this subject. I'm here to share with you my own experiences from a practical and from a North American perspective. Friends, the story is told of an art dealer in Paris who once purchased a Picasso, wanted Picasso himself to authenticate the painting. So he brought it to Picasso. Picasso looks at the painting, shrugs his shoulder and says, "I'm sorry, it's a fake." 2 years later, the same art dealer buys another painting by Picasso. Once again, shows it to Picasso. Picasso says it's a fake. Well, this time, the art dealer protested heatedly. He said, "Mr. Picasso, I was there in your studio. When you painted this canvas, I was present." And Picasso looked at the gentleman and said, "Sir, I often paint fakes." Now, the reason that I tell you the story, because how often do you and I paint fakes? Our words are fake, our gestures are fake, they're emptied of any real currency, they're debased of any real meaning. And there is this crying need in the world for authentic people, for that stamp of authenticity to stand behind our actions, our words, and our gestures. And the search for authentic, moderate Islamic leadership is our quest in reaching out to the Islamic world. Reaching out and identifying a cadre of Muslim leaders, clerics and scholars who authentically desire to engage Western civilization and the Jewish community in particular. 20 years ago, when I first entered the field of Black-Jewish relations, the challenges were quite formidable and daunting. The 1960s civil rights struggle. No segment of American society provided as much and as consistent support to Dr. King and to the Black community as did the Jewish community. It was this historic Black-Jewish alliance and partnership that brought about some of the greatest social and political changes in the history of the United States. But following Dr. King's assassination in 1968, for a host of reasons, Black-Jewish relations spiraled downward, reaching its ebb, its lowest point in the Crown Heights riots in 1991. But since then, in rebuilding and restructuring the Black-Jewish alliance, we engaged a more moderate, a more centrist, a more empathetic African-American leadership, strengthening and projecting the voices of moderation so that today cooperation and not conflict is the defining element in the state of Black-Jewish relations. Or today, when we hear the anti-Semitic rhetoric and diatribe of Louis Farrakhan or a Reverend Jeremiah Wright, it is the African-American leaders themselves who were the first ones to repudiate this kind of anti-Semitism. 18 months ago, my friends, we launched a similar strategy in North America for outreach to the Muslim community, reaching out again to a more moderate group of Muslim clerics and scholars and letting them know that they have partners in the Jewish community in their clash with extremists in Islam. The American Muslim community, depending on what survey you believe, is anywhere from 2.5 to 7 million people. But it is a very enlightened, very multicultural community. A recent study conducted by the Pew Research Institute indicates that more than 80% of American Muslims reveal that their number one concern is the growing extremism and fundamentalism in the world of Islam, and why many American Muslim leaders are the first ones to speak out against radical Islam. Why in my own synagogue, the New York Synagogue, the head imam of America's most prestigious mosque, the Great Mosque of New York, was unequivocal in his support of Israel and in his condemnation of suicide bombings as a perversion of the Quran. Dr. King, when I invoke his legacy, I often remark that he understood that a people who fight for their own rights are only as honorable as when they fight for the rights of all people. And in this spirit, in a landmark, groundbreaking program between North American rabbis and imams from the United States and Canada, we recently produced a television commercial that will be shown on CNN National and International in September, where the imams are speaking out against anti-Semitism and the rabbis are speaking out against Islamophobia. This will culminate in a twinning of mosques and synagogues across North America the weekend before Thanksgiving. So my friends, to conclude, while Islam is viewed with great suspicion in the United States, and while Islamophobia is growing in America, based on my own experience, both in the United States and Canada, I do not believe that we are engaged in a clash of civilizations. Rather, the clash is within Islam, where we, Jewish members of the Jewish faith, where we must build coalitions and partner with the voices of moderation, those voices that see no inherent contradiction between Islam and democracy, where we must help our Islamic co-religionists take back a glorious religion and heritage that has been hijacked by a group of extremists and fundamentalists. For Jewish and Muslim Americans, this is a necessary step toward greater understanding and religious harmony, even as we remain respectful of our political disagreements. Thank you.